Hi y'all. I'm going to talk to you guys about Chapter 1. Hopefully you have already read Chapter 1. And this is just the basic information on there. I'm just going to do a quick review. Again, hopefully you have read Chapter 1. So if you hear noise behind me and stuff like that, just kind of tune it out a little bit. I'm actually out of the country right now, and I'm in my uncle's backyard. And there's a lot of construction going on around here. So Chapter 1 was all about kind of the beginnings of first aid. And one of the questions that should have been answered from Chapter 1 is, why is first aid important? So why is first aid important? It can happen to anybody at any time. You're hearing sounds around me, behind me. There's construction going on. Anybody could be injured at any moment. Somebody could be trying to walk across the street and get hit by a car. Kind of the way my brain kind of works, and it's kind of sad, really. Growing up, I used to watch this show, and the guy that did the show was called J.J. Bittenbinder, and he always did scenarios about, like, if you're driving along the side of the road and you're stopped to get gas, and somebody gets into the back of your car, how do you get out of the situation if they have a knife to your throat and stuff? If you're driving across a bridge and all of a sudden the bridge busts and your car falls into the water, what do you do now? So that's kind of like in my head what is always going on in my head. I'm not saying that I think everybody should live in a padded room, but I think that people should be aware of situations that can happen and how to deal with those situations. So yeah, that's kind of what goes on in my brain sometimes. I hope not everybody lives like that, because it can be kind of distracting sometimes, but it's nice to know that I think about that stuff and that I'm ready. I hope I'm ready in situations that can happen. So it's important to know first aid, because anything can happen at any time to you or to somebody else around you. So that's why it's important. Who needs first aid? Well, if you look on in your tables in the first chapter, you'll see that unintentional injury leading to death is the number one cause leading to death for ages 1 to 44 years old. So that's huge. That's huge amount of people that didn't intend to be injured, and they ended up injured with an injury that did lead to a death. The greatest amount of injuries are treated by first aiders, which is hopefully at the end of the semester going to be you guys and ladies. So it's very important that we know why first aid is important, and then knowing who needs it. So even the delay of 4 minutes when the heart stops could mean death for somebody. So it's very, very important that knowing that anybody could need first aid at any time. So what is first aid? First aid is the immediate care given to an injured person. And again, if given correctly, it could save somebody's life. So not only knowing that it's very important that you understand what to do in a situation as well. What are some first aid supplies? That could be something, if you go to Walmart for very, very cheap, like $12, I think you can get a really good first aid kit. It might have bandages in it, some tape, gloves, personal protective equipment, medications, scissors, tweezers, blankets, flashlights. May even be like a first aid card telling you what to do. So first aid supplies could be anything. I'm in the backyard right now. I could grab a stick, and that could be a first aid supply. I don't want to grab any because, well, first of all, I don't see any right close. Whoa, I think that was a magpie. So hopefully I don't get pecked on the head by a bird, and then nobody's here to protect me and help me in a first aid response. Okay, so first aid in the law. Some things that you guys need to know about first aid in the law is you need to have consent. There's different types of consent. There's express consent, implied consent, and there's also refusal of care. So what is consent? Consent means that the person has told you in some form or fashion that it is okay that you help them. So you need to tell them who you are, your level of training, and ask for help, and then say what you might do. So, hey, my name is Corey. I'm trained in first aid and CPR. I see that you're having some issues there. Maybe they're bleeding or something like that. I'm trained in first aid. Can I help you? If you let me help you, what I'm going to do is apply pressure on the bleeding and then call 911 if it continues to bleed through. So that might be an example of how to get consent. Once the person gives consent, it could be either verbal, it could be physical consent. Then you're allowed to touch that person and give them the treatment that you know how to do. Implied consent is with a child or an incompetent adult, somebody who is not able to give consent verbally or physically, then we assume that's implied consent. So like with a child or an incompetent adult, if they don't have a competent adult with them, then we have what is called implied consent. Also, if somebody is unconscious, we have implied consent. Refusal, if somebody says, no, you can't help me, or no, you can't help my child, you can't help them. You can continue to try and get them to allow you to help them. So you might say, if you don't allow me to help you right now, this could lead to something that could be worse. You might lose a limb, you might lose too much blood and pass out. This could lead to death if you don't allow me to help you. So try and coax them into letting you help them. And then if they're still like, no, you can't help me, you can't help my child, then you need to call 911 because maybe they can get them to allow them to help them. So, abandonment, and negligence are two that you need to look at in your book. So abandonment is maybe you started to provide care, then you stopped and you left that person. Negligence is you providing some care above and beyond your level of training, or you provided the wrong type of care. Duty to act. Some positions have a duty to act. So like a lifeguard, if they're on duty, they have a duty to act. You cannot, as a lifeguard, see an accident happening and then turn your head and be like, I'm about to get off in 5 minutes. I'm going to let the other guards see this happen and let them do it. Okay, that's negligence. With some positions, you can be negligent if you do not act, if you fail to act, if you fail to stop an action. So if you see a child running and you turn your head and instead of saying, please walk, you allow them to continue running and you don't stop it, you could be held negligent. If you're a coach in the weight room and you're seeing a child not lifting correctly and you do not correct that form and that athlete gets injured, you could be held negligent. So it's very important that you understand safety protocols as well. Injury prevention is key. We're going to talk about education, enforcement, and engineering. So what is education for injury prevention? Okay, that could be something like swimming lessons. It could be something like a hunter's education course, a gun safety course. It could be watching a DVD on a first aid topic. That's education, and that's the first little level of injury prevention there. Enforcement. Enforcement could be seatbelt laws. It could be helmet laws. As far as water safety, it could be wearing personal flotation devices. When you're boating, if you have a child on the boat is legally required to wear that PFD. It could be building codes. I said there's construction going around me right now. Maybe there's building codes here that are enforced to help prevent injuries while these workers are working. Engineering as well is also helpful in injury prevention. We see that when we have airbags in our cars, helmets. If you're in football, there's been a ton of football technologies going on, a lot of concussion research going on, and sensors in the helmets that have helped in engineering a better helmet so that we are not seeing or we're trying to prevent injuries and head injuries there. Fire extinguishers also as an example of engineering and injury prevention. So that should be chapter 1 in a nutshell. Hopefully you actually read the chapter. But I just wanted to go over a couple of these points in chapter 1 so you guys kind of have a little bit of review. So now you guys will take your chapter 1 quiz. That will be online through Blackboard, and then you'll move on to chapter 2. You'll also take a quiz from chapter 2, and then go ahead and start reading chapters 3 and 4 as well, and I will see y'all soon.